The House is resumed. Members, the House is debating the first reading of the Financial Reporting Bill. The Honourable David Parker had the call. He has 4 minutes remaining. David Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll just pick up my copy of the bill. I was commenting earlier on the care that we need to take that we don't over-regulate entities that have raised capital from the public. And I want to just develop that a little bit in the little time I have left. There is a public interest in companies being able to raise capital at the lowest possible cost, so that small businesses, New Zealand-owned businesses, can expand and become bigger-owned businesses, New Zealand-owned, raising money from the New Zealand public. We want to maximise the pool of people that they can raise money from, so that they have the ability to expand to their potential. And do so in a way that makes them less reliant on overseas sources of capital rather than New Zealand-owned savings. And I am a person who thinks that, as a consequence, it should be possible for a medium-sized New Zealand company to raise capital from the public through a public offering. Now, if the cost of that becomes too high because of regulatory hurdles that we put around the process itself through securities laws or increased directors' duties, or increased burdens upon auditors who face additional risks in the prospectus, that's one source of cost that makes it more difficult for those entities to raise money. But another source of cost is if, after the date of raising capital and issuing ordinary shares to the public, if we have ongoing extra compliance costs for those entities, then that too represents a cost barrier that gets in the way in the development of the New Zealand economy, particularly in respect of these new businesses that we need to grow into larger entities. And so I have a concern that we are now saying in this legislation, if I have this correct, that once a company is a public issuer, it must forever have the more expensive route of compliance in terms of compliance with international reporting standards and ongoing issuer audit requirements. And I'm not convinced that that's necessary, and I think we should look at this at Select Committee. Obviously, for a period of years after you've been a public issuer, there ought to be an audit to hold people to account for their promises and their prospectus, and just to make sure that they're, having taken members' money from the public, that they're accountable to the public. But if after a period of years the members of the company decide by an appropriate margin that they no longer want to have that more expensive compliance route, why would we in this Parliament stop them going back to a cheaper route? What's that? No, I don't think it does. This is a good point. This is something that needs to be checked at Select Committee, because we ought not to be loading unnecessary compliance costs. Now, as I said, there are good aspects of this bill that reduce compliance costs on smaller businesses by having a easier or alternative accounting routes. That's to be applauded, but I want to have a look at that issue there. Now, the overall reason that we have decent financial reporting standards in New Zealand is that we need to keep transparent our processes, we need to maintain our tax base, we need to have confidence in capital markets. All of these are important reasons why it is appropriate that we have guidance through legislation as to the conduct of commercial affairs, so that we maintain a healthy and prosperous corporate sector, which is obviously important, or corporate and non-corporate sector. All business entities need to be appropriately conducting their affairs in a way that makes the economy strong. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Michael Woodhouse.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm very pleased to take this call in support of the Financial Reporting Bill, somewhat unusually ahead of my colleague Jonathan Young, who was